Well, I would say we can probably get started. We will try to catch up with Shelley and Regina if they do come on here in a little bit. So the Hudson Virtual Charter School meeting of October 1st is called to order at 5:31 p. Did everybody get the agenda? Okay, and on the agenda, there were the minutes from both our July 16th meeting as well as the July 30th meeting. I would like to move to approve the meeting minutes for those two meetings so that they can go into the permanent record. Peter, Melissa, can we get a second and move?
I was finding my mute button. I second.
Did you guys have a chance to look over those minutes just to make sure they appeared accurate to you as well?
They look good.
Yep, look good to me.
Any objections? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Minutes approved, Sarah.
Sounds good.
Next
I'm assuming.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm assuming we just record today's date procedurally of the
Yes.
approval.
Yeah.
Okay.
We will try to remember to put approval of the previous meeting minutes on our permanent agenda here so that we don't end up having to go backwards for too many meetings. Second item on the agenda is enrollment activity for the Hudson Virtual Charter School. Sarah, do you want to just touch on that one?
Yes, I'm just jotting some notes for our minutes for today. So this year's enrollments, I actually, after I met with Stan on Monday, I went back and did a little bit more of a data mine on last year's numbers and this year's numbers for first semester. And I was actually shocked to learn that we are almost exactly in the same place in terms of total number of students last year by the end of first semester. So we had a lot more kids kind of filtering in over that semester, but we had 126 total enrollments, students, and about 235 courses among those 126 students. And 11 of those students were PE only because PE was kind of one of our big things last year. And then 28 of those 235 enrollments were fitness fundamentals. And now this year we are at 120 students for first semester and 212 total course enrollments. So, and only 3 of those are fitness fundamentals, and those are for specific reasons. And then we have 60 online PE students who are taking Hudson version of online PE this year. So I guess if we add those on, we'd be at 180 right now. So depending how you count it, we would be up, but pretty much holding steady, which I think really speaks to the fact that my enrollments weren't significantly impacted by COVID. So I had a lot of conversations with families about fit and learning styles and needs, and talked with a lot of families at the beginning of the school year who were thinking, you know, maybe this charter school or this virtual academy might be the way to go. And a lot of really great conversations with families about whether that was a good fit for their child. And so I think I'm finding that we did a good job with continuing our meetings and our conversations with families and finding a good fit for students. Also, so far, you know, we're a month in, but really good success rate with our students so far as passing and keeping up with the content and logging in and things like that. So a lot of positive things to report. And I don't know if there's anything else people have questions about, but that's kind of what I came prepared with, I guess. So
Are a lot of those full-time, or are they still the onesie twosies?
I
staff?
have a lot more full-time this year. So I have 6 who we would consider full-time in terms of they're not taking even a single class at Hudson. But I have a lot of students who used the program last year, did maybe 2 online, and now this year they've increased their number that they're doing with me, either to full-time or just they picked up even more than they did last year. Yeah, so
Cool.
and then I have still a really good blend of kids who are doing both Hudson High School courses and WVS courses. And then of course this year we now have the IDL blend with WVS, and we have the blended within the building, and now we're going to have the hybrid blend. And so there's lots of different blends going on, but it's working out really well. One other piece of data that I did pull, because I've been curious to kind of see where my numbers are at for IDL participation versus coming in person. And I think my numbers are quite a bit higher for IDL. So I'm at about 40% are IDL or full-time virtual, whereas I'm at about 60% are choosing the blend of in-person and WVS. So I don't know where the district is at right now, but I pulled those numbers yesterday for my program. So
It could,
Yeah.
that could just say that people who are already started this way were more comfortable with the ideal concept because they'd done an online version. I know that was part of us, so that probably
Yeah.
makes sense. Interesting.
Mhm.
Do you anticipate, Sarah, any sort of a bump here with the district going to the hybrid learning starting next week? I just sort of wonder if there aren't going to be some people that rather than trying to do the IDL thing, might not want to shift right over to, the virtual learning academy and sort of.
Is it too late for kids to make that decision though? Because it's already
Yeah, it is.
it's almost too late because
Yeah.
those WBS classes they can't get through in time.
hmm You can attest to that. You kind of
I
need,
can attest
you
to
need
that.
all of your time. And if you would try to like convert over to a full WVS load right now, it would be rough, especially if you're new to fully online courses. I mean, I think if there was so everything right now has to be sort of a team meeting and decision. There isn't like check a box and sign up and you're in. I mean, it's generally that way anyways, but we're definitely past that point where you can just sort of say, hey, I want to take French, or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, it's not gonna, and it's not a fluid decision, whereas I think right now we're definitely still in that fluid situation of hybrid and IDL and in person, and I think most families are still wanting that flexibility, and WVS doesn't have
The
a
next
lot of flexibility.
the next time someone could really make that change would be January, second semester, just
Mhm.
the way the classes are structured.
Yep.
So, and that's something
Yes.
about as we get farther in tonight of do we want to do anything there?
Yep. Requests that we're getting now, unless if there's like an extenuating circumstance, it's kind of, second semester will be your option. And again, kind of depending on what you're looking for, because we know semester alignments for core courses don't always mesh that well either. So there's that whole conversation as well.
Any other questions for Sarah?
Did we get any external enrollments?
We
Two?
got 2. Yeah. Yep. So I have one student actually that I was really excited that we had the virtual charter school this year because she's been our student for as long as I know. She's a 12th grader, has always gone to Hudson, and they moved to River Falls. And so she was fully online second semester and did great. And so knew it would be a great fit. And so she's one of my full-time virtual students, but she would have been stuck either coming to the building every day or going to a different district this year.
Cool.
So that was cool. And then I have one student from the Madison area.
Mm.
So that was pretty cool. They're thinking of moving here actually. So I think that played into their final decision.
I was going to ask how they would have found out about us, and we were talking about marketing last meeting.
I'm not sure if I ever asked about how they found us per se. I know that they did a lot of research into many different programs, and I know they're looking at the district from just an overall standpoint with our music and theater and lots of different things that their student was interested in doing, possibly in person. So I don't know if they maybe just stumbled on the charter school. I'm not sure. I should ask them.
It would be nice to know, did it come up somehow? Because it's not like we're going after it. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, Dave, do you want to take us into the virtual environment due to COVID?
There we go. Yeah, you bet. So, you all just received the notification a couple days ago, just yesterday, that we will be going into our next virtual environment, which is level 2, which brings a couple grade levels into a hybrid model. So grades 7 and 8 and grades 10 through 12 will go to a hybrid model. And our hybrid model, the hybrid model is one of those terms that has a lot of different definitions. The way we define and operationalize hybrid is that approximately half the students with last names A through K are in one cohort, students with last names L through Z are in another cohort, and but they still receive the bulk of their instruction synchronously, meaning even on those days when they're not on site. I should back up. Cohort A is on site Monday, Tuesday, and every other Wednesday. Cohort B is on site Thursday, Friday, and then the opposite Wednesday. So it's 2 days on, 3 days at home, and then switching back and forth between those schedules. Now, the reason I start with that one in our description is because that's the new one. So that's all the talk. We've been spending a lot of our time preparing for that, getting families ready. So if we think of our previous virtual environment, which has gone remarkably well, it's what we call IDL, or individualized distance learning. That was an environment that was driven primarily at the beginning by choice, a little bit by county dictate, whether that is COVID related or actual positive COVID results, or quarantine. That's the other way into IDL. But it was either a choice or pretty clear based on what was mandated by the county. As we move into hybrid, now we have 50% of the families on any given time in those grades in a virtual environment. So now we have several hundred students that will be receiving their education virtually, and really didn't have a choice. So we're preparing for that. We know that we'll have families that this will be probably more challenging for than it was for families who made that choice, because the families that made that choice had time to prepare, to think about it. Because it was their choice, they prepared the learning area. They did all those things that make it as positive as an experience as possible. So now we need to ramp up our support, and we need to ramp that up in a way that supports all these students, many, many more. But there's a lot of communication. In the last 2 days, there have been 3 communications that have gone out, either to staff and families. Another one will be going out tomorrow, trying to get parents and students as prepared as possible. Now, the silver lining to this, of course, is that the grade levels that are going into the hybrid model are at the secondary level, where the students are more independent and able to operate in that sort of environment a little bit more easily than an elementary student might be able to. And that's where we are as we prepare for this. Just real quickly, I'll talk about why those grade levels, because sometimes it sounds a little bit goofy. Why wouldn't you just say middle school or high school, elementary? The idea is that those transition grades into the new environment are so critical, and there's so many things that happen in those grade levels that are based on making connections with either staff members in the building or between students, that we wanted to make sure that we could keep them on site as much as possible. So they would not, students in grade 6th grade and 9th grade, they wouldn't go into a hybrid model until the numbers would also dictate that for the elementary students. And we'll continue to track the results. Again, we look every 2 weeks. We just looked Wednesday, and that's what dictated the change coming up starting Monday. We'll look again in another 2 weeks from that point and see what the numbers are telling us. It has been remarkably challenging, but also very rewarding. Teachers have done an amazing job. They've worked really, really hard to be successful in this environment. They're working longer hours than they've ever worked before, and they're doing it with a sense of dedication that is really inspiring. That it's really hard for a teacher to let things go that they know are good for kids. And we're letting them know sometimes there are things that maybe aren't critical. They might be good, and in a regular year, absolutely. But really doing as much as we can to help teachers clear their plates a little bit, because it is incredibly challenging. The biggest challenge that we have is that teachers feel as if their attention is divided between two completely different worlds. The world of the students that are there with them in the classroom and the world of the students that they're connecting with through the screen. And it's challenging to feel that you're giving both of them the time and the energy they deserve. But again, they've been absolutely awesome. We're getting to the point of seeing a little bit. In fact, there was a teacher that sent an email today and used the term light at the end of the tunnel. Like they're starting to see, okay, we're getting in the routine a little bit. Our Wednesday late starts, I think, or early releases rather, are helpful to give a little bit more time for teachers to plan and prepare, because the preparation in this environment is daunting. So that's a quick look. Erin, do you want to talk about special education and students in other programs?
Sure. So in terms of special education, we have all of our students either participating on site or through IDL. When we switch to hybrid models, we really make individualized decisions based on the student's need. So there may be some students who will attend 5 days a week, even when we're in a hybrid. It really just depends on how their disability really impacts their ability to access instruction in a virtual way. So our special ed teachers are working incredibly hard right now to connect with all of their parents to build those contingency plans based on those different instructional models. So.
Good to know.
Any questions about that?
Nope, I don't think so. Any feedback for Dave? Any questions for Dave or Erin before we move on?
And I'll just say, I'll echo, and Dave, I've sent you emails. My two are both doing IDL, and it's amazing at how well that's gone. I know, not that we haven't had technical difficulties and all that, but considering the change and how quickly that had to be put together, I don't see them during the day. They go in their rooms and they come out at the end of the school day, and they're busy the whole time. So they do a good job. I think the teachers are doing a really good job. And I have emailed individually with the teachers and just to check in, and kind of, you don't get that face-to-face, right? Or that ability to introduce. So it's been interesting to watch, but I've been very impressed with how well they've done it. So there's my testimonial for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, the next item on our agenda is a discussion. At our July 30th meeting, we had a presentation on marketing and recruiting, and just some of the ways we may go about that. I guess my question, I asked Sarah to put this on the agenda for us for tonight's meeting. There still seems to me to be an awful lot of confusion or lack of knowledge, if you will, in the district about our virtual learning academy, and certainly in the district about the new virtual charter school. I wondered if perhaps we try to get some sort of an outreach flyer created that will actually show that. I don't know if it's best to do it graphically or, but let's show the two funnels or the two paths, if you will, for kids within the district and kids outside of the district. And they sort of ultimately, if you're going virtual, end up in sort of the same space. But what these two paths are, what these two avenues are for the kids. And I didn't know if it was like a letter to the editor, if you think that letters to the editor right now are going to get lost with all of the political, be just due to the time of, the time of the year that we're in right now, just prior to the election. But it seemed to me as though perhaps a letter to the editor coming from the governing board would perhaps help to clear up some of those misconceptions or just parents out there that just don't know about the options that are available to them. Or what other ways, do you think we can reach out as a board and start spreading this news a little bit more? I mean, I'm not looking to try to swamp Sarah with 20 students, in the virtual school environment. And at this point, recognizing that we're probably talking about the second semester before we, no matter what we do. But I would like to see something out there and enhancing our content on the website. I think is probably a pretty high priority as well. Thoughts?
I'll plus one the idea of the maybe starting with the website, clarifying the terminology. I just was, as you were talking, I was like, what happens when you Google stuff? I Google Hudson Virtual Learning Academy, and it sends me to the Hudson Virtual Charter School page. And then we don't actually really define those terms. We've talked about this before. So defining the funnels, exactly what you just said. But I should know how this stuff works. And I did a double take, like, wait, which one is which? What, is my understanding wrong? So I think we need a really clear, I don't know anything. I don't know any terms. What am I looking at? Landing page for both of those things, maybe, and I think we probably need a separate page for either one. We can sort of figure that out, but I think there's an exercise in clarity of communication to be done with the existing stuff we have. And maybe that's, in my mind, that's the thing to start with, because especially in this day and age, people are stuck at computers all day long, even more than they normally are. And Google might be the most common way that people interface, find their way to us. So I think thinking about that experience and getting people landing in ways that, like, we shepherd them and give them progressively more information as they're ready to take it, sort of. I'm not sure how we actually go about that, but that would be my primary thought.
I think you have to do the website first before you do any type of press release or other type of advertising, because if you don't have a good place to send them, it's not going to matter.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So just a couple thoughts on that too, that play into the importance of the timing. We're going to be starting our registration process earlier than we typically would, and that will be the new model. And when I say registration, I mean student registration at the high school for classes. A couple reasons we're going to do that. It helps with scheduling, it helps with staffing, helps with all that sort of planning. But from our perspective in the virtual world, it also helps us to create virtual classes and staff them appropriately and not have our virtual experiences be an afterthought or automatically funneled completely to Wisconsin virtual school classes. I was walking through the high school today, had a couple meetings and visiting with some teachers. So just today, literally had 2 teachers stop me and say, hey, hearing more about these virtual classes, it's because of the work that Sarah's doing with Phi-Ed. They're getting this understanding of us creating our own virtual classes in-house and wondering about how they can get involved in that and some level of excitement. That's pretty cool. So that's our internal audience is starting to get that sense. So I'm wondering if the board is interested, what we could do is work some of the language out and some definitions and clarity, and then work maybe with a designer that we've done some work with before to come up with a graphic representation that would help explain the difference between the models. And then we can use that as a communication tool for stakeholders in multiple venues.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
It's
it's
super cool.
interesting.
The teachers are interested too. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting like persona to imagine. The teacher is Googling for this. How can they be involved? You know, I think having these entry points for each sort of persona that we come up with would be really helpful.
Mhm.
Good. We can definitely get after that. Like I said, that will have really good internal function as well as external. So that would be great.
Mhm.
Dave, I feel as though there is at least some sense of urgency to this. And I know that you guys are all inundated with changes every single day, depending on what comes out of the school health department or the county health department or what have you. But I'd like for this not to fall off the stovetop completely. I recognize that there may be times when it needs to be backburnered, but if we could keep this at least on the stovetop so that we can get these clarifications done. I mean, it's really difficult at this point to tell anybody to go to the district website and then go to the Hudson Virtual Charter School. That content that's on there isn't particularly valuable without help. So, you know, the sooner we can enhance that, the easier it's going to be for any of us to talk to people both inside the district and outside of the district, for that matter.
Sure.
So Dave, as you talk about earlier registration, are you talking about that for 2021, 2022 calendar year? So normally would be like that February, March timeframe. Is that going to be accelerated this year?
Yeah, so we'll be doing that before winter break.
Oh, okay.
So it'll be accelerated quite a bit. Now, it does 2 things. There's 2 things that happen with that dynamic. One is we get the information earlier, but 2, it does create an environment where there are more changes after the fact. But we're willing to put in that work after the fact if we can get most of the work done up front. I talked about the virtual planning as an example. Again, Sarah's done fantastic work with the Phi-Ed team in creating our own courses. So next year, we're going to be able to register students and schedule those teachers to teach those Phi-Ed classes in advance. Right now, they're doing that on overloads. So they're very busy. They don't get they're like a study hall or a prep time during the day. The teacher's working on overloads. Moving this ahead will allow us to get ahead of that and actually schedule it so it's a reasonable workload. Just a couple questions for board members on the direction of the website and the communication, just so we have clear marching orders. There's 2 ways to go about this. We obviously need to clarify differences between Hudson Virtual Charter School, Hudson Virtual Learning Academy. The reality is the only real functional difference there is the open enrollment from other districts. So that part clearly we need to define better. Other than that, there is no difference. So what I am picturing in my mind, and I'm not a designer, is actually more of a synthesis of the existing information. So it's not all over the place. Clear, concise language where you can look, you can see a visual and read for 2 minutes and have a pretty good understanding. And then the text heavy stuff after if you need more detail.
Mhm.
Does that match your thinking as a board?
Well, not just my thinking anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I think an easy definition or a clear picture, but you're right, right? Once you get past, you're either outside the district or you're not. It's exactly.
Mhm.
I wonder if we could consolidate the concepts to your point, where we're not using terminology like virtual learning academy versus, like, if it isn't really that subtle of a distinction, then maybe that isn't something that we try to clarify. We just say, no, we collapse those. There's just Hudson virtual learning or something like that. And then there's after, oh, are you in district or out district? That's kind of the, some detail further down. That might be even easier for people to understand.
That's a good idea, and we can play with that. What we can do is, between the designer and also working with Tracy, they're really good at helping us clarify language. We have a lot of information, but I have a tendency to, as you might know this already, I have a tendency to put too much information out there. So, so that's good direction. That would be helpful to
It's
clarify
almost
that.
the branding of it that we've talked
Yeah.
about, right? What's the brand we're going to use? And then it doesn't really matter. The details are the fine print underneath it, but how do you attract people in? And it's more about this virtual learning. They don't really care if it's a charter school or not. We get that, but I don't know that a parent cares that much.
Agreed.
Right.
Yeah, I think we'll just need to make sure that it's clear that you're eligible whether you're in district or not. That's key, because otherwise people will Google there and say, oh, I don't know what this means. Am I even, so we'll need to make that part clear. But I like the idea of demoting that to just sort of an important checkbox or line item, not the headline. Right now it says Hudson Virtual Charter School. If you get here looking for Hudson Virtual, that's the headline of the page. If you get here looking for Hudson Virtual Learning Academy for in-district learning, you'll think you're in the wrong spot. So maybe, we probably won't actually, because you probably won't even read the headline. You'll just scan and munge your way through it. But
yeah. Oh, go ahead, Sarah. I was just going
to say, well, I had several Hudson families who filled out the Hudson Virtual Charter School application form, and then, got a little confused, I think, too, about the whole open enrollment piece. And so it confused our own people, I know. And then they get to me either way, so I can help them through it. But like Stan was saying, they can't figure it out right now without help, or without like knowing someone who's already in it and part of it who could explain it. But didn't end up being a huge deal this year, but definitely something that we need to work on. The other piece that I know we touched on Monday, Stan, was the open enrollment time frame this year, and how long are we going to accept open enrollments? And maybe Aaron, you can shed a little bit of light on the alternative open enrollment deadlines, if there are any. I looked on DPI and it kind of didn't really define that very well.
For alternative open enrollment applications, there's just different reasons for which a family can apply for that alternate piece, but really we're just looking at our numbers and just making sure that we're following the rules about denial and approval. If that makes any sense.
So is there like a January something deadline, or really there is no deadline?
Can you say that again, please?
I said, is there like a January deadline of some sort?
You turned yourself. Sorry. Okay, say that one more time. I'll keep my volume up.
Is there a January deadline for accepting alternative open enrollments? I thought at one point I heard there was like a January something.
So the January dates are affected by what our board members set as open seats within each program. So we'll just want to be mindful of that. But to answer the question, we accept alternate open enrollment applications throughout the year. Okay.
So from a timing perspective, if we look at the activities, if you're going to be doing before winter break some of the enrollment for next year, we probably want to get something put together here by November or mid-November so that we can do a push of information.
Mhm.
Which isn't very far, seeing as it's October 1st.
It's really not.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm thinking once we start, it won't take that long. Now, there we go. This is really difficult because Aaron and I are only about 8 feet apart from one another, so we have to coordinate microphones and speakers. Once we get started with this, I don't think it'll take very long. I know the designer we've typically worked with works very quickly. So we can get a meeting scheduled within a week to begin the conversation. And I think once we get that ball rolling, it won't take long at all. And your direction's been very helpful. I think we've got a good starting point. And just as I'm picturing this in my mind, what I'm picturing is maybe when we talk about branding, a tagline with a little bit more meat beyond the definition. So if it's Hudson Virtual Learning Academy, a charter school for students of Hudson and throughout the state of Wisconsin, something where we're sending the message of this is for everyone. And but people that are better with words and graphics will help us out with that.
Mhm.
That sounds great to me personally.
Oops. Okay, sorry, Pete. Can you say that one more time? We didn't have volume again.
we need the stuffed animal that it's my turn to talk. I just said that sounds good. Like just you saying that headline outside out loud, or the tagline, the subheading there, being the second thing you read, I think would be very valuable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good deal. We'll get rolling with that. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say, sorry, Dan, I'll I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I would say in general, like less copy and more a few loud items.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody reads websites.
Right.
Unless it's the IRS and they really screwed up their form, but they're going to scan it all and maybe look for links really fast. So the first few words matter a lot.
Yep. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
And I think I speak for the board that, as soon as we're able to start this ball rolling, please engage us again and we will respond in the fastest possible way. So. Okay, we beat that one up pretty well. Discussion of future meeting dates, and the only reason this went on, we have our next formal board meeting set for January 21st of the 2021. We can meet next in a working environment as soon as we can pull any of this together, Dave, to be able to give you our feedback and keep that ball rolling. I agree with Melissa that we're looking at mid to late November here, needing something that we can let people sink their teeth into. So I don't think we can dilly-dally here too much. But other meeting, I mean, the other thing the other reason for putting this on the agenda was, do we want to continue with this hybrid setup for our meetings? Do we want to move to strictly online meetings for the foreseeable future? Just trying to give the district, some heads up as to what our board is thinking. I don't know how far you guys think we may be from ever getting back to face-to-face meetings, but there are those days when I don't know as how we'll ever see each other face-to-face again, and then there are the times like this, I guess, that I hold out some sort of hope. But
well, just for information for the board, so the regular Hudson School District School Board now has moved back to in-person meetings, and even to the point of not streaming the work sessions because we're available here. So that's another thing that we could do at any point. It's the purpose of streaming the work session, or our board meetings rather, is to give the public access. So it's an open meeting. If we choose to have them on site, that no longer is a necessity. So, and we have the space here. So if as a board, you're comfortable, we can definitely have them on site, still be physically distanced. And we are doing that for the regular board meeting. So definitely not.
Good to know. With that, any other questions for Aaron, Sarah, Dave, me?
Do we want to tentatively pencil in a November date, like a early to mid-November work session, or should we?
I was sort of
What do you think?
hoping that one of you were going to say that perhaps we could do this yet in mid to late October, to have that work session, but let's just see how quickly the ball can get into motion.
So a couple things with that. In terms of open meetings, we can still share information with you. We just can't discuss that information. So we can keep you apprised of the work by sending it out, as long as we then don't engage in what's called a walking quorum, where you start to operate as a board making decisions. But we can send you information as we're thinking, because working with the designer, I think it would be very difficult to have anything in the next couple of weeks that to respond to, but definitely in November. But that doesn't mean that we can't work through some of the language with you as we work on that side of things. And then if we have that meeting in November, we'll have a pretty good idea of what we have to share.
Why don't we pick a November date just to pencil it in? It can always be changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do think it would be fun to do it on Halloween in costume, but I feel like that might not be the most natural.
It's a Saturday.
Yep, sorry, it's out.
You can come in costume to the next meeting, Peter. That's fine.
I suppose nothing's stopping me.
So maybe like November 12th? Just picking that out of a hat.
Mhm.
Works for me.
Works
Still
for me.
got a lot going on after work, so pick a day.
Yes, Sarah, let's set that date for the next work session for November 12th then.
Perfect. Finding my minutes here. November.
And then Sarah, as you're typing that too,
Yeah.
we'll, so we have a meeting scheduled tomorrow to connect. We haven't been doing that, but if you want to do that, that might be good for us to connect then, and then we can go through tonight's discussion, get some things scheduled, and then be ready to roll. We also still need to schedule our meeting to have our regularly scheduled meeting with our larger team, so we can get that scheduled as well. And this will be fun. It'll be fun to dig into some real work and not feel like we're just operating in emergency mode.
A little bit more normal. It's always, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, where do you want to do that one tomorrow?
I think we've got it set up for a virtual connect. If you want to do that, we can just connect virtually.
Sure. Sounds
Awesome.
good. One other thing I was going to mention about the website and the registration and all that. I know last year at the very last minute, I got a copy of the registration handbook that's given out to the students and that's posted online. And so we couldn't really make any significant changes at that point, but I know that area, or that's another like key piece to help communicate to students, kind of how this all works and what courses we have and all of that. So I think once we have some of the pieces for the website, we can maybe carry some of that over onto the course. It's like the course description handbook or something.
the big one that all the kids bring home.
Yep.
Yep. I think that would be good, especially for parents, because I know my kids didn't look at it, but I did. So parents are probably the ones that are looking at it more than the kids.
Mhm.
Well, that way our suggestions aren't too far off base, you know. So, we did the same thing in this house, so it's all right. If there are no other comments on tonight's meeting, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will put forth a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Meeting adjourned at 6:17 p.